for the most part. There's some sites that stink, but I love social media. And I've been published in Toastmaster Magazine, Indigo. There's another startup, How to Eliminate No Joke by George Wilborn. He's a comedian he's on with Doug Banks on V103. And I contribute to the Independent Bulletin newspaper, which is a community newspaper that serves the south side of Chicago. I have two really exciting successes that I'd like to share. I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Maya Angelou in 2012, and it was published in St. Louis Magazine on her birthday, and St. Louis is her hometown. So I was really excited. And last month I was published in Forbes, and the article is how to write, what is it?
How to write an effective biography or something like that.
Bio, but I forgot which word she used. So if you go to Forbes, look up Marcy Hill, you'll find my article. And I am a blog addict. I have 4 blogs. Don't try this at home. That's really abnormal. But my first blog is Marcy Writes, which is my portfolio site, and that's where I just post I post my published works, but also blog about my experiences to help other writers and bloggers along their journey, hoping to make it a little easier. And I always share resources that I find, because there are a lot of free things that we really don't know about, and I'm that nerd who will find them, try them, and say, hey, check it out. Then I have Shorty, or Chicago Southside Resource, which is my community site, and it's serving, obviously, the south side of Chicago. And as you can see, I'm still trying to develop identities. But for Shorty, I need people to know that we just don't kill people on the south side of Chicago. We do live. There are people who live, but please don't believe everything you read and see in the media. Then I have Overcoming Bloggers Block, which is my book site. I have a book that will be published next month. And only started that because somebody told me to. And don't do what people always tell you to, even if you have free time, because eventually that time will go away and you will not have time to manage it. Then I have my last site is Real Skate Stories. Excuse me. I'm currently conducting research on Chicago's roller skating history and black roller skating in Chicago. And this site is mostly just to collect information. Every now and then I might write an article, but for the most part I just ask questions like, hey, share your stories, pictures, and any other memories you're willing to care to share. And surprisingly, people are actually finding my site, and I do not promote it at all. So I think that's pretty cool. And okay, next, and these are the books I have written. That's my main book, 62 Blog Post Overcome Bloggers Block, which will be published next month. And that's how I got into the bio book. That's actually how I got into Forbes. I think it was because I told her I had a book. So even if you guys create a little guide and say, hey, I have a book, and then go reach out to Forbes, you might actually get in. Because I think that was one of the defining factors. And that one is currently available on Smashwords. And these 2 books down here are my ebooks. One was I gave away for free, free download, and then the other one, it's just stagnant. It's one of those things you wrote a book and you didn't know how to sell it. But I might bring it back to life. So that's my background in writing and blogging. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay. So now we're going to go to our topic, which is diversity. And I just put it up there because I thought it was cute. You guys are familiar with what our topic is. So diversity in blogging. According to this image, more women are blogging than men, but barely. But when you look at the different blogs and things, I can honestly say from my experiences, it's about half and half. But the biggest difference between the bloggers is the content we blog and how we interact on social media. And I found some blogging statistics, and these are really, really hard to read, but they said there are 6.7 people blogging on blog sites and social media. I really don't know how they broke that down. Honestly, it's hard to say how many people are actually blogging these days because you have so many free sites, and most blogs are abandoned within the first 6 months. People have great ideas, and they'll start, and they're really, really excited when they start. Then after about 2 or 3 months, that either life happens or they just say, well, I have no idea what to blog about. Then you go to different sites and they're gone. Or not gone, but they're not they're no longer blogging. It says 12 million people blog via social networks. So when you guys do status updates on Twitter and Facebook, you guys are actually blogging, even though most people do not call it blogging. They just say, well, I'm updating. It's microblogging. Excuse me. It says the leading blogging site in the U.S. is Blogger, which is owned by Google, which makes sense because Google just tries to take they're taking over everything. So if Google can do it, they'll just take it. And of course, going down here, it says the majority of bloggers are women. 23% of internet time is spent on blogs and social networks. 77% of internet users read blogs, but for the large number of women, people actually read the blogs. There are not many people who leave comments, which is also part of blogging, but they'll read them, click out and go to the next site, but a lot of people don't leave comments. And it says over 50% of bloggers are 21 to 35-year-olds. But I'm finding there are more granny bloggers these days. Boomers are actually hitting social media. And
You call them granny bloggers? Did you say granny bloggers?
I say granny, but I see a lot of, that's what they say, I'm a granny blogger. Because, you know, they have mommy bloggers, which are huge,
Yeah.
and then they have daddy bloggers, and I see a lot of granny bloggers. So,
Is that a new term? Did you make that up? I haven't heard
one
that.
lady I follow, and that's what she called herself.
A granny
I just
blogger.
figured it's a cool term.
These, well, Alan, you don't have to call me sir. Listen to you.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Marcy. You're so nice. The blogging statistics that we see here, is this talking about the internet as a whole, or is it really kind of focused specifically on the United States?
It's focused on the United States.
Okay, I was going to say that.
You know what, it would be very challenging to find all of those only because of the different, unless somebody actually does a study. If WordPress does a study themselves, I don't think they've actually done it. Or if Google decides to do it and do a breakdown, that's how we actually know it. Otherwise, we really wouldn't.
Probably have to be a collective. You know, like you take different countries and the different surveys from each people in the country that follow that, like the different associations, because
Right.
every country has, like the UK probably has a blogging
That's
association.
more popular than
Right,
yeah.
you know, and they probably study it, like, you know, stuff like that. So that'd probably be the only
And then, you know,
way.
they have like Google, don't they have Google UK, Google Friends? So Google,
Yeah.
Google actually have to care, maybe they'll start doing it now, you know, if they're doing all the other surveys and analysis. So in the blogging world, there are generally 5 types of bloggers. You have the part-time professional, which is a blogger who blogs for money in their spare time. Most of these people actually have jobs and they're just blogging in the evening. Then you have the hobbyists, which I'm trying to move from because I want to become one of the paid bloggers. But these are people who just pretty much blog for fun. I mean, there are all sites. They can be travel, scrapbooking. I've seen a lot of crafting sites, but I follow scrapbooking sites. Mommy bloggers actually get paid. So if you know any mothers who blog, tell them to jump on the bandwagon because a lot of brands are going after moms. Some people blog as a full-time job, but I think only 15% of bloggers fall into that category, and most of those people have been blogging for over 8 years because it takes a long time to build a following. The corporate blogger, you have to do it as part of your job, and then you have the entrepreneur who blogs for a company they own. But most entrepreneurs I know personally do not blog, so I don't know who they use for those figures, but that's good to know. Popular blog topics, and these are just general. I didn't really think about business blogging topics, so I don't really have like business blogging statistics, Alex. But the top 10 sites, most popular blog sites: HuffPo, TMZ, Business Insider, Lifehacker, Mashable, Blog. You read them, you can see them. But do you guys visit any of these sites?
The tech sites, I mean, yeah, some of those are mostly tech sites.
Right, but then I think the 2 I visit the most are Business Insider and Mashable, because that's what I do.
I kind of visit those as, like, there's a link to something in my Facebook feed. And then I see it and I click out and it's like Mashable, or I get a lot of stuff that's Business Insider.
Yeah, I get a lot of Business Insider.
It seems they're really good with SEO or something.
So you guys When you guys go to the English sites, are you familiar with them?
Yeah.
And then these are the top topics that on blogs in general. You have the celebrity gossip, technology, politics. Apparently, people trust bloggers, or particularly Huffington Post, more than they do regular media sites because I don't know why. They just,
Oh, I was waiting for your because I was
I
like,
was getting ready to say why.
Actually, no, years ago, I did another one. They said they find that bloggers tend to be more, I won't say not just, not honest, but not, they don't have a
Ulterior motive.
right financial motive. Because
That's
even
true.
when Huffington Post started, she was just one person, and then she built a team, and then she sold her stuff for what was it, at least $1 billion to AOL.
Yeah, it was a lot of money to
It was
AOL,
it was
right?
a big, I think it was like a low billions. That's another penny that the blog if you haven't started. Business is always a popular topic and then the news, but like I said, they go to bloggers for their news. And plus you find you actually get more of a full picture when you go to bloggers, whereas with the news you only get 30 seconds. So a blogger might actually speak to the family that was involved in a particular incident. And then when you go to sites that have former news people, they still do what they do, but they can be more open with the story because they don't have the financial motivation behind them.
Marcy, what do you define as the difference between like blogging and like writing for the news?
Well, there's a style for writing for the news. I'm not a trained journalist. But with blogging, it's just your authentic voice, and you're just saying what you need to say. You'll do your research, and it's your story coming from you. As far as news writing, there's a style where they actually have laws. I mean, they have legal legalities they have to follow for writing for the news.
Okay.
So where does something like CNN's reports fall? I mean, those are reports that are conducted by individuals that are subscribers and members of CNN, right?
Yeah, those are bloggers
So that's considered
they're allowed
blog.
to post.
Citizen journalism, is that
Citizen
citizen
journalism.
journalism?
But see, I don't know if they gave them the standards on how to write and what to write on CNN. Where a blogger, you just say what you want to say. You can, a lot of bloggers curse. They say it's garbage. You can give an opinion, whereas you can't really give an opinion when you write the news.
Yeah, there's actually a new category called social journalists.
Really?
So they're actually out in the field, like in the Ukraine and Thailand with the military coup, and they're blogging. They're using Facebook, they're using their sites, they're using Twitter, and they're putting out that information in real time at the events unfold.
Oh, I hope they are alive. That's
We're
dangerous.
following the journalists'
So
standards.
they're actually following the journalists.
They are trying to follow the journalist standards, at least the professional ones. But the thing that I read from them is that a lot of those standards and laws haven't yet applied to them. They don't know how to apply because it's almost like, hey, it's my Facebook page.
Yeah.
And that's the trick. But because they're trying to categorize it now as social journalism, they're trying to get the law to apply.
So do people get paid for that then? Or is that
The
just
one
like
that I
a hobby?
followed out in Thailand, he was asking for donations. He wasn't actually paid by any news group. And a lot of news groups would actually go and interview him for the start. So CNT was interviewed by CNN, Bloomberg.
I would say I feel like if it was paid, you'd almost have to do it under like CNN's Facebook page or something.
He's an independent social journalist.
Interesting.
But I did find too, there are a lot of journalists that got laid off from newspapers, and they start their own sites and they're not getting paid. So even New York Times and Wall Street Journal are just figuring out how to get paid for their online content. Because I think when I started writing, I started in 2008. So blogging was all the rage. But then within the next 2 years, it was like everything was going online, and the newspapers were still trying to figure it out. And actually, they still are. Because I know last year, I don't know if you read the report or heard the report, that the Sun-Times laid off all of their photographers. So they want everybody to be everything. And I don't know how effective that is because I don't really read the newspaper. I follow Twitter for my news. But it's interesting. And even today, I think, even with Crane Chicago, I follow Cranes. you can only read 6 stories, and then, I think 12 stories per month, and they say, well, you have to get this subscription.
Yeah.
They're still trying to figure out how to get paid. And it just took them, they were not ready for it.
The other mashup there, and you can see mashup up here, but there's a mashup of are you a journalist, because there's the visa specific for news and media. And then there's the business visa where you're actually making income. And so you're asking for donations and stuff. There, again, it's sort of like a mashup, and they don't really know what to do with these people. And if they don't like the news, like the military who's in charge, is the new political group, they might just kick them out of the country.
It's so interesting. And sometimes, I remember I went to a conference the year I started writing, because I actually left my job to be a writer. I didn't do that right, but I think I'm okay now. That year, there was a conference, and there was this big, huge, you could feel the tension in the room between bloggers and journalists, because some bloggers have more credibility than journalists, and it was just like little tit for tats, and I was just sitting there like, well, I'm glad I'm not in either of these industries. I'm just a writer. I'm just some random writer, trying to find my way. But a lot of people are still trying to figure out how to get paid online, and if you look at a lot of the like even Forbes, you see a lot of advertising, and that's how people are getting paid, through the ads. Hopefully people will click them, because the 3 main ways online people get paid are through affiliate ads, like Google AdSense. Then you go Google again. AdSense, they're through affiliates, CPA clicks, and AdSense, the advertisements. Because I was on my old site and she had ads. I was like, well, it's pretty bad if it's on old. So, it's interesting, and there are a lot of ways to get paid, but it takes a minute to build a brand in blogging to actually start getting paid. So next we're going to social media. And you see the demographics on who uses social media by gender. Of course, it's us, we beat the guys out, but I think that's because we're more social in general. And then I thought it was interesting by household income, that like low income people have more online time than we do, but maybe they are not working as much, which is why they have more time to be online. Then you really didn't see a big, huge difference between education level, which I thought was pretty cool, because social media is really level the playing field on some level. Well, I think it's more mobile than social media, but because you can access social media through mobile. Then by age, the 30 through 49, well, no, let's say Gen Y, 18 through 29, because I know I'm Gen X. So the generation behind me is on more, but then they said, the biggest growth on Twitter are between the ages of I think the biggest growth area is between 50 and 65 on Twitter. So they are adopting social media, even though it's a little late, they're coming on.
But is that growth in terms of new users, or is that
New
growth
users.
in terms of content?
New users.
My mom just got it. It's true.
It's true. And I know a couple of times I was tweeting, well, I'll talk to anybody in line or in person. But there are a couple people, and they have some cool Twitter names, they'll call themselves Granny and things like that. And I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then by race, they said, where you see the statistics, they say Hispanics engage more on social media. But then that was just in general. I don't know if they take to a particular site, by different races take different sites, go to them differently. I didn't really find that, but there was so much, and all the statistics were all over the place, so I just found the sources I thought were more credible.
I would have loved to have seen this demographics 10 years ago, when social media was still kind of in its infancy, 10, 15 years ago when it was still in its relative infancy.
Actually, it's still small.
Would you?
I think people are still adopting. They're adopting more now, because even when I started in 2008, I was the only person I knew blogging. And I started it because somebody told me to. I keep doing stuff because somebody tells you to, but that's why I started. And I was the only one, and everybody was like, oh, congratulations. I was like, this is just something else to do. But then I also wanted to be a writer, and they told me, they said, well, if you start writing, you can send people to the blog, and they can see how you write. So that's how I started that one. But then I think up until like 4 years, well, that's 2010, it's 2014. that's when people really started being more, my people